Now, according to Google, a bistro is, in its original Parisian incarnation, a small restaurant serving moderately priced, simple meals in a modest setting. Well, the 5th annual Luxe Restaurant Awards this week named Embarc as South Africa's Bistro of the Year for the 2nd year running, I think. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. And you'll find this beautifully simple award-winning restaurant in Parkhurst. No, not Franschhoek, but right here in Johannesburg. Its owner, Chef Darren O'Donovan, joins us now in the studio. Darren, thank you so much for time. When I speak to chefs, I always say thank you for your time, because I know time is of the essence in what you do. But congratulations for this award. I know you chefs are the first to be rather dismissive about awards and these public displays of affection, I could call it, from the industry. But it seems in South Africa, the people are becoming more comfortable with these awards, aren't they? How big of a deal is it?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of customers come through this last week and have said congratulations, well done. And I still sit quietly and quite modestly, and I'd rather go hide in the kitchen. Yeah. But we have to face it. We have to acknowledge it. And I think the fact that the likes of Luxe are promoting the restaurant industry is fantastic. And
the fact that I know there's that little bit of, not a little bit of competition between Cape Town and Joburg, because you can't really compare in terms of the views, and that's always been our culinary home in the Western Cape for various reasons. But Joburg has really upped the ante in the last 10 years or so, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I think Joburg is actually probably becoming a little bit more innovative and pushing of the times and the trends. And I think we've kind of had to. I think the consumers within Joburg want it, and they've got into a level of understanding class and quality, and are willing to pay for it, but they want quality to be delivered on.
Now talk to me about when you started Embarc. I mean, it was 2020 when you decided to open this restaurant. At the time when we were really in lockdown, and all the news that we were hearing from the restaurant industry was rather negative. I mean, people were under a huge amount of pressures to keep their doors open. We had the booze ban that was coming and going. People weren't going out. They weren't able to go out. The hours were different and that kind of thing. And you decided at that time that this would be a good time to embark and start your first restaurant. Talk to me about that time and what led to that decision to open, and how difficult it was, and what were some of the things that went your way?
Yeah, listen, I was working at a restaurant, quite a large one here in Joburg, and through the COVID sort of process, there were packages for retrenchment put out. Sure. And it was a restaurant that had 160 staff members on the payroll. So naturally, as a business, you have to start protecting your assets and unfortunately let go of staff. And I was a long line of lists that all faced the same sort of, what do you call it, sort of, demise almost. And it forced me to start thinking, and I thought to myself, well, how do I help those that are in the same situation? And I had a business partner at the time, and we sat down, we discussed it, and we said, you know what, let's do it, and let's start browsing and exploring the opportunity. And I think that's the sort of dream came to life. And we started looking at rentals, and of course places had closed down and weren't able to trade and operate. So rental was at an all-time low. Sure. Managed to pick up our lease within Parkhurst, which is obviously a prime location, at a very good sort of discounted rate. Reached out to a couple of staff members who I'd worked with through the last 14 years, and by chance there were a lot of them that were unemployed. So I said to the guys, we're taking a risk, we're taking a gamble, we're trusting on your skill set to assist us through this project, and let's do it. And we signed our lease on the 1st of November. On the 17th of November, we opened doors for trade. So,
goodness me, had it always been a dream of yours to own your own place?
Absolutely, yeah. So we had previously, 4 years ago, I'd ventured out, bought into 50% of a business, and unfortunately didn't have a very good business partner. But as everyone says to me, it was school fees. And it taught me a lot within business very quickly, because I've come from the kitchen aspect and the kitchen environment. It's very creative, but as soon as you get into the realm of owning a business, you have to get quite strategic and tactful. And obviously then through COVID, having learned all these life lessons, the moment we got locked down or there was curfews or whatever it might be, we adjusted. New Year's was a great example. We'd planned this beautiful New Year's party. It was our first New Year's open. We were doing a set menu, wine pairing, wait until 12 o'clock and celebrate. And of course the curfew came through and there was no alcohol.
I remember that.
So we went along and we bought an oversized clock. We wound the clock all the way back a couple of hours, said to everyone, come through earlier. We're still going to do the celebration. And when the clock struck 8 o'clock, Happy New Year!
Wow! And what was the reaction from your patrons?
Listen, everyone absolutely enjoyed it. Unbeknown to us, I think everyone walked out quite intoxicated with alcohol, because they came with hip flasks and little jugs in their handbags. And I mean, I couldn't stop them. Everyone was there for celebrations. So.
And a story that we will remember forever.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about this difference between a bistro and a restaurant. And how was that? What part was that of your thinking and what you wanted your baby to look and feel like?
So I think a bistro, as you said, is obviously it's a small environment. So we sit with 32 people as a capacity on a daily basis. But a bistro, if you look at it in terms of the classic terminology, is always attention to detail on food. And we want to do as high-end quality food that we possibly can, but in a relaxed environment where you feel welcomed. You want to come in and celebrate a birthday, an anniversary, celebrate life just by catching up with friends around a dinner table.
And that was important for you to have that atmosphere, right?
Absolutely. Our meal times are always based around the table, and that's where our menu started to derive from that. And we thought very long and hard in terms of the kitchen aspect, and we've decided within our menu you can have almost every dish as either a starter or a main portion.
I saw that on your menu, yes.
What it does, though, is it allows people to order a whole bunch of starter portions, and immediately the conversation is kept around the table based around the food. Try this, taste this, have a sip of the wine, and explore this flavor. And that's where we encapsulate people.
Talk to me about your menu, because I looked at your menu last night. Like I said to you, I've got a toddler, so I don't get out as far as often as I used to. And I think we are showing some of the pictures of some of your beautiful food. And if you do spot anything, tell me what you're looking at. And I always think that if I look at the menu of a restaurant that's owned and run by the chef himself, I always think, okay, this is a bit of their Bible. You can look at this menu and it's going to tell you a bit of something about that chef, or at least their story or where they've traveled. And I looked at this and I'm like, I've got nothing. This guy is South African, surely, but there's just a little bit of everything. It's like a global being that comes across here. I'm just glad that we've moved on from, if you put biltong on something, then that makes it South African.
Absolutely. yeah, that's cliched almost.
Absolutely. You've got bobotie wontons with smoked raisins, apricot chutney, and Cape gooseberry. I mean, that stood out for me as something very, very different. Yeah. And so you've just got like a little bit of South Africa. You've got a kudu loin here. You've got, and then this stood out for me, a Zamalek braised oxtail croquette. You put it down as a black label, obviously. Black label braised oxtail croquette, carrot and coriander seed. Talk to me about those little influences in your menu.
So, must have been about 7 years into my career. I was very fortunate to take a bit of a gap and refresh, hit the reset button. And part of that, we decided to go for a 4-month tour through Europe. And backpacked, and we laugh about the scenario now because we literally had backpacks on and we went from hostel to hostel, saving to afford the next Michelin meal.
I was about to say, okay.
and we obviously got to experience a variety of different cuisines. We went through Europe quite extensively, as high up to go and see the Northern Lights and as down south as you can go to San Sebastian, highest sort of Michelin per capita. And we took influences across the board from all the different places. Having the menu outside on the wall that people can walk past and browse was a big influence from that. And we took our favorites. I had a journal, and I ended up buying a second journal while we were there, just writing down notes, ideas, and sort of a thought process behind it. And when we came back, we were like, oh, do you remember this and do you remember that? But let's do our little African and South African more so influence behind it. In Finland was a dish that we had where the kudu loin came from, where they sort of do a ratio of deer that they cull on a yearly basis, and that's allocation of meat. But with the guys, they told us the story, they showed us the deer, and they're like, what we do for when we prepare this deer is we'll go and forage. And they grabbed a whole bunch of mushrooms, they found a whole bunch of cranberries growing on the tree, and we went back into the kitchen and we cooked. And influences like that were obviously sort of telltale of what
made your head explode.
Completely. And we came back and we were like, you know what is abundance that we find here in South Africa, and what can we recreate? Kudu, springbuck, etc. are obviously in abundance for us, and if treated well, you can do an exceptional dish from it. Cape gooseberries, I mean, it's something that grows in the wild in the Cape. And little Malay sort of spice influences start running through, and before you know it, you've got kudu with Cape gooseberries and a Malay influence. And so we sort of merged what we learned into our style and our use of ingredients here, which I think has set us apart, to be honest. It's
and there's a playfulness as well. I mean, I can tell you're very intensely passionate about it, but that you also have fun with it. And is that part of the experience you want your patrons to have as well?
Absolutely. I always say to customers, I put myself in the consumer's shoes first. What would I want to eat? What would I want to feel when I'm eating it? How do I want to experience this? And that develops a thought process. And it's little things in terms of when we do sit down and eat it, the bowl doesn't feel right, the plate doesn't feel right, it's a little bit awkward to eat, so we evolve it and so it changes.
And we're running out of time now. I could talk to you for hours about this, as you can tell. Your plates are beautiful from what I've seen online, what we're looking at as well. But you don't want that to put people off, because as South Africans, we very much give me my plate of food and where are the 7 colors and that kind of thing. But we do have a great palate. as well. And I'm sure you want people not to be put off by how beautiful it is, but to actually just get involved. Is that an important part of the experience as well?
Everyone says you look with your eyes first, and
Absolutely.
naturally you do. But I mean,
eat with your eyes first.
Eat with your eyes first. But at the end of the day, you've also got to make it taste great, and the taste is what people come back for. The appearance is a nice to have, it's nice to photograph, but at the end of the day, has it satisfied you within the taste profiles? Yes, I'll return, and it's what keeps us busy.
Okay, Darren, thank you so much for your time. Embarc is a little bistro on a corner in Parkhurst in Johannesburg. I'm not going to say that you're going to be booked fully for a few months just because of this interview. We're not that powerful, but let's hope a few more people take an extra eye, and not all of the best restaurants are just in the Western Cape. We've got some great spots doing some amazing and exciting things here in Johannesburg as well. We wish you and your team everything of the best.
Thank you so much, and great to be here.
Chef Darren O'Donovan, owner and chef patron, as they say, of Embarc Restaurant, the best bistro in the country, named this week, and you'll find them in Parkhurst here in Johannesburg.